Welcome to OrthoPod, a podcast about the people of orthopedics and their stories. We understand that we all play many roles in our careers and lives, and it is these very stories that ultimately inform our successes and failures. Hi everyone, it's Mo Bendari. Welcome to OrthoPod, and in studio today we have Kiret Dhindsa. Kiret Dhindsa is a postdoctoral fellow in artificial intelligence and healthcare. He's affiliated currently with the Department of Surgery at McMaster University, as well as the Vector Institutes for AI in Toronto. Hi, Kiret. How you doing?
How's it going?
And welcome.
Good to see you.
So, what's on your mind these days?
I think a lot of what's on my mind is actually how in Canada we have such a hard time actually implementing AI in healthcare.
Okay, well let's
This is a big pet peeve of mine. You might know.
Okay, so let's take a step back because I think we can dive deeper into this. Let me first ask you the question: what is AI? And is AI and machine learning and deep learning and a host of other synonyms that people throw around who maybe aren't as knowledgeable as you are in the area? Can you give me some idea of what all this means for those who are out there who may not be as versed in it as you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, AI is kind of this broad, amorphous, and increasingly confusing term, I think. Classically, AI meant computer systems that emulated human logic and reasoning and that kind of thing, which is not generally what we mean by AI anymore. We're talking about a subset of AI called machine learning. So machine learning is a subset of AI which, instead of being programmed to emulate human logic, instead tries to learn patterns and rules from raw data. And deep learning is a subset of machine learning which uses these really large neural network type things, as probably a lot of people have heard of.
Yes.
So it's just a specific technique for implementing machine learning. And it has certain advantages in terms of there's less that you need to pre-compute about the data. There's less you need to know about the data. There's more that the system can learn from the raw data itself. So AI, as we call it today, is really sets of algorithms and techniques for learning patterns and rules from data, so that you can do certain kinds of tasks, like predicting, does this person have pneumonia from this X-ray image?
Right. Well, let me ask you this then. Everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody. It seems that everybody who's doing research or is in the entrepreneurial tech side is throwing around the term machine learning, AI, deep learning, neural networks, all the things you've mentioned. And I have a hard time believing that everybody who's throwing this term around, like everyone's doing it, is actually doing it to the same quality. So can you give me some insight around, let's say you have 100 people who talk about their group doing AI, that type of research. Realistically, how do you fraction down to those who are really, really trying to solve the meaningful problems versus those that are using it optically to get funding or do other things that, quote, are part of the culture right now? The same way, for those of you who are in healthcare would understand, the same way everyone was talking about evidence-based medicine. Well, we're all doing EBM. But when you dig deeper, the majority of people, 90%, weren't doing EBM, but they were using the branding of EBM to help them brand themselves.
Yeah, so it's a very good question. It's something that we definitely talk about in the field. Let's think about it this way. So modern AI or machine learning kind of came about in the late 80s, early 90s with Jeff Hinton. So U of T was kind of the seed for a lot of modern machine learning techniques.
Okay, and now is he associated with the Vector Institute then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the Vector Institute kind of comes from the same group of people who they were previously his PhD students.
Right.
And I think he's the chief scientific advisor.
Okay.
Something, I don't remember his exact title, which I probably should. But,
Right.
But at that time, it wasn't really a popular technique. It wasn't very widely used. It's really in the last maybe 5 to 10 years that modern machine learning or AI has become widely used and of interest. So when you hear so many people talking about that they do AI and they use AI.
So you say so it was around for about 10 years before it got really popular?
Yeah.
So, I mean, very similar to what happened with evidence-based medicine and surgery. Very similar. It's a very similar pathway, actually.
Right. So if you think about it, how many people can actually be using AI or modern machine learning when it's really such a new thing, right? There aren't that many people who've had their training in that scientifically. So if you say there are 100 people who say,
talk about it.
Yeah, they say we do AI.
Yeah.
In my experience, I would say roughly half of them are actually doing something AI related.
Okay. So out of 100 people, 50 people immediately are discarded. In terms of, the reality is, and we get to, well, how do you know who's doing the real thing? I'll get to that. But okay, so you're down to 50 people. Of the 50 people doing AI, surely there must be levels and quality of the types of questions people are asking.
Right, exactly. So there's a lot of people who will download a pre-trained model developed by some AI researcher for some other problem.
Okay.
And then just apply it to some new data.
Okay.
Right. So you're interacting with AI, you're engaging with AI, but you're not doing AI. You're not doing AI research.
Okay.
Right. You're saying, here's some AI someone else developed. Can it solve my problem as well?
Got it. Okay.
Right?
And isn't a lot of it, again, coming from someone who's naive, and I'm asking questions from that perspective, it seems like there's a lot of just regression analyses happening. The same way we think in statistics, right? Well, we're running a bunch of regressions, and we're calling that machine learning, but
I was about to go back to that. Those 50% of people that I kind of discarded right away.
Yeah.
And maybe some of them will be mad at me, but
yeah.
I think what's going on there is that a ton of people who do regression analysis, logistic regression, that kind of thing, now say they do AI, right?
Okay.
And that's not what we mean by AI, but those statistical techniques kind of solve a similar kind of problem.
Right.
And there's a relationship between that and machine learning.
Right. Well, you can see, because in a regression analysis, you're trying to develop an algorithm and a formula that you can then plop into new inputs.
Yes.
But it's
so the line between statistics and AI is blurred in that region.
Right. Okay.
And AI is a sister field of statistics and derives a lot from statistics. So it makes a lot of sense, but I think everybody knows when we're talking about AI, we're not really talking about linear regression.
Got it. Right.
It's just that a lot of people, they will upsell that way.
Okay, so then what are the other, so in the 50% that are doing something related to AI, some are borrowing it, borrowing AI algorithms and applying it. What are some of the other things people are doing in that area? Like, what are some of the other, quote, low-hanging fruit types of projects that people do in AI that still may not represent where you believe the future is going and what we need to do? And then that gets to your opening statement about where do we go?
So I think probably out of those people, there's the half of them who are actually doing real AI research, I would say. Something like that. That's just my rough estimation.
Okay.
And
so 1 in
of those people,
4, right?
Yeah, something like
overall.
1 in 4.
Yeah.
And a lot of what's going on there is we have a bunch of images, so image data on ultrasound or whatever on a specific organ, and let's see if this we can develop an algorithm that solves a very specific problem, like can we diagnose pneumonia, like I said, from X-ray images of the chest.
Right.
And the chest X-rays generally have to come from a similar source or be normalized and standardized in a certain way.
But let me ask you this question while you're on that topic of any sort of the computer trying to predict right or wrong from an X-ray. What's the gold standard? Is the gold standard a human making a judgment? Because if the gold standard is always a human making a judgment, it's flawed. Like
it's
in the
a
principle,
huge problem
because
in this
humans
field.
Are hugely variable and they can be wrong as many times as they're right.
Yeah. I think it's the biggest problem with AI in healthcare now is that we don't have a gold standard, right?
Yeah.
Because clinicians don't have a gold standard.
Right.
They themselves are the gold standard in a way,
so that's a big challenge. Right?
Yeah, it's a big challenge. The best that people have been able to come up with is to get multiple clinicians to label the same data.
Right.
Which of course is really laborious, right?
Right.
You can't have 10 clinicians go through and label the same data set, which is thousands and thousands of images. So we haven't really figured out how to do better than that. There are some ideas, but I haven't really seen anyone
do it in a meaningful way.
Really get beyond that.
Okay, well, now let's then jump right back to your opening statement, which is your frustration and challenge about doing AI research in Canada, for example. But I'm sure it applies beyond Canada. What is that challenge?
The challenge is how do we access the data?
Okay,
right.
So quality data.
So data quality is a big problem, and I think that's a problem everywhere. It's not particularly a Canadian problem,
right? But
it's a problem for, I think, healthcare in particular, because we've been collecting data for years now, many years,
well,
decades.
People talk about it all the time, right? Correct. People say, well, we're getting these massive tens and tens of hundreds of thousands of data entry points from the EMR system, right? The electronic medical record from various hospital systems, and we're going to be able to, create algorithms and predict and help physicians and healthcare providers make things. So why is that a flawed
So I think it's very misleading because, first of all, the different hospitals collect the data in different ways.
Right.
They have different standards. They have different tools and techniques for collecting the data. And I think the most telling thing is that there have been some studies that have shown that, at least with their data, when they collected it from multiple hospitals, it's easier for the AI to tell which hospital the data came from than whether it represents someone who has a disease or not. Right?
Wow. Okay.
So that's one huge problem.
Right.
Another huge problem.
Is that problem fixable? Like, so I'm getting the answer is probably yes and no. But usually when you have big data sets with you can impute potential values, you can do everything you can. Never the same as saying a quality data set collected in the beginning is the best scenario. But can you make it better?
I think in a limited way, there's some opportunity to try and standardize the data post hoc using statistical techniques. Okay. But I think that's very limited. The differences are so large between hospitals, I should say, and health institutions that you won't be able to get beyond that to really fix it, right? I think the solution has to come at the policy level, and that has to be in two ways. First, we need policies that allow us to share data, A, between hospitals, and B, between with hospitals and researchers, because it's extremely difficult right now. And two, the solution has to be that we need policies that standardize the way we collect healthcare data, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would think that would be the critical issue, is that are we collecting the same data, and are we collecting it with the same degree of rigor and quality so it can be used for future? So then when what groups right now do you believe have the right data? Like, what is a good data set? Is there one that exists that people would say, oh yeah, that's an example of a great data set, and we understand that? Because right now, data it's everywhere, and I think I've heard numerous times, in the entrepreneurial field, speculators get out there and say the new oil in the world is data.
Yeah,
that is it. They who own quality data have all the power, and I see what we're seeing ripple effects of having the large data sets that are held in the social media outlets being broken down because they have too much control, too much power. But are they the best data sets right now, or are there other places?
In the social media world? Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Because it's real world data, right? So in machine learning, in the healthcare space, there's something called the Mimic data set, Mimic 3, and these are kind of curated healthcare data sets. I believe that come from the US, right?
Okay.
And the issue there is that when we've developed algorithms that work really well in this data set, they don't translate that well over to real world data.
Okay.
Because the data is just too clean, too curated, right?
Right.
Real healthcare data is messy, and we need to figure out ways to get beyond this messiness to deal with that, right?
Okay.
Which could be, you have someone wearing a sensor at home and they rub up against the wall and the sensor gets displaced a little bit, or they take it off because it's bothering them.
Right.
All that kind of stuff, right? We don't really have good ways of dealing with that. To detect that in the data.
Right. Oh, it's fascinating. Okay, so from your research personally, what are you working on right now, and what challenge are you trying to overcome? What is your piece in this big puzzle?
So my big challenge is getting access to data in the first place.
Okay.
So given that we have access to some data sets, right now I'm kind of in a position where, other than data I collect, which is mostly neuroscientific data, I'm working on data sets that people share with me, right? So the big one I'm working on now is an ultrasound kidney data set on prenatal hydronephrosis. So swelling of the kidney due to inability to release fluid.
And the same sort of thing, using the approach to identify patients at risk or a diagnosis, or what are you trying to sort out?
To basically give a severity score for how far along this disorder is, and try to predict, are they going to get better on their own? Do they need surgery? That kind of thing.
Okay.
The clinician who shared the data with me wrote in a paper that basically we're as good as a coin flip in terms of deciding whether someone should have surgery. And these are infants, right? Wow. Whether this newborn child should have surgery or not.
Wow.
Which is quite scary. And again, the best we have in terms of the ground truth is the clinicians reporting of what the results are, right? With respect to that, it looks like our model does better.
Okay.
But personally, I'm not that comfortable putting it into real world practice, because I don't really know how to trust whether, the model is good compared to what the clinician has decided, but is that really true?
And it seems to be like a false narrative story, which is, the media gets out and says, our computer's going to replace humans. But but how, I guess, again, intellectually, if the human is the gold standard, how can anything be better than what you're already setting as the standard, right? Now, the challenge is when they differ in their opinion. If the computer is truly learning, it may have outlearned the human, but we're never going to make that assessment. We're always going to say, well, the gold standard must be what we think, and this must be wrong. And that is, I think, one of the, personally, I find that to be the challenge with
I think
how to
there's a
figure it
middle
out.
phase that
Yeah.
we can use to get through that barrier. And
Okay.
that is, you have a clinician working with an AI,
Yes,
and the AI is basically a second doctor giving a second opinion,
got it.
right? And
Yes.
you need ways for the AI to say, this is why I think this person has
So
this
that's
disorder
a
requires this
different
surgery.
level. Like, so when you talk about
Yeah.
low-hanging fruit of just making X-ray evaluations, the next level that really is really becoming integrated with a decision-making
Yeah.
report almost back to you to say, this is like truly a second opinion. Which
Yeah,
is actually
so
pretty
something I'm really
fascinating.
interested is the symbiosis or the
Right.
synergy between a human and an AI.
Right.
And this kind of goes back to my PhD work, which is
Right.
actually on brain-computer interfacing.
Okay.
So the idea there is you have an AI or a machine learning algorithm learning to read someone's brain activity in
Right.
real time so that they can control a computer application.
Fascinating.
So the human has to learn how to control the AI, and the AI has to learn how to control the human in a way, to control each other's outputs.
Right.
So you have to create this synergy between them. And I would like to see or find ways to develop that same synergy in the healthcare system, which would be a clinician working with an AI. Getting that done in practice is very difficult because once you have the algorithm, you say, okay, we can start testing this and pair this up with some clinicians. You don't really get a lot of traction. You don't get people who are actually interested in doing it. And this is what frustrates me about the Canadian system. Because in the US, people are doing it,
Yes.
right? We developed a lot of the AI technology.
But it's being exported to the U.S., it sounds like. Yeah.
We're famous in the world for developing AI, but we don't use it. We're going to be the last country in the world to use it, it feels like. So,
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, we have to change that,
Yeah.
and we have to get you
I
back
agree.
at OrthoPod for a follow-up to get more insight on the work you're doing. And maybe what we might do is we might do a deeper dive in one of your projects
Sure,
next
yeah.
time we have you visit. So, please, again, thank you very much, Dr. Dhindsa, Kiret, for supporting us at OrthoPod and giving us new insight to understanding this very rapidly evolving area of AI in healthcare. Thanks so much.
yeah, no
Appreciate
problem.
it.
And just to say, I am optimistic, though it might not sound like it.
Oh, I think you're very optimistic.
critical,
I think,
but
I think you're a
optimistic.
realist, right? And the realist means you got to deal with the challenges. So
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm sure you've been called this, but you look like well, what the hell is that? You look like the Indian Fabio.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So, have you do look like the Indian. So how, when I saw you the first time, I said, how long have you had long hair?
Yeah, since I was a teenager. It was basically I think I was maybe 16 and I just stopped going to the barber. And then by the time I was 19, I realized my hair stopped growing. And I was like, so what's the point of getting my hair cut?
You're just gonna
I
keep
just
it the
don't
same.
pay for a haircut.
But surely, now, if you look at it now, right? And I mean, cool. So I thought when I first met, I said, he must have you must be part of a rock band at night or something, right? So what kind of music do you like, or what do you?
So yeah, a lot of people don't know that my first major was in classical music.
Classical music.
Yeah.
So what did you?
But I actually am mostly into metal, progressive rock, progressive metal.
Okay, so what were your earlier influences to where you are now? Like high school days or earlier school?
In terms of music?
Yeah.
So I listened to Wynton Marsalis, Chet Baker, a lot of the jazz.
Oh wow, yeah. Okay, so that's not.
I mean,
okay.
Dizzy Gillespie.
Yes, right.
Louis
yeah.
Armstrong.
Yeah.
I was a trumpet player, so
Okay,
if
got
you
it.
haven't figured that
Yeah,
out, by
okay,
now.
got it.
Yeah.
But that is not heavy metal. So
No, it
so
isn't.
when did that happen?
You know what? I don't even really necessarily know. I think I listened to a lot of the early '90s grunge because I had an older sister.
Oh, okay. So
by the time I was
Nirvana,
6 or
when
7 years
Nirvana
old, I
came
was
out.
listening to Nirvana when I was 6 or 7.
Right. So
Red Hot Chili Peppers and those kind of
Soundgarden.
Yeah,
all
exactly.
over. Yeah. Got it.
And I guess when you
Was
start
there-
with music that
Let me ask you
young,
this: was there a song that just connected with you? It's this is it. Everything about this particular band and song. This is it. I
actually,
totally get it.
there's a Japanese metal band with a song called Art of Life.
Okay.
Which was one of the most mind-blowing prog metal bands.
What's the name of the band?
X-Japan, and they're an
X-Japan.
80s they kind of introduced metal and rock or hard rock to Japan.
Right. I think it was a Japanese band called Loudness wasn't them. Loudness was a German band, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, but with Udo Dirkschneider. If I
Okay.
remember. heavy,
Yeah.
right? But okay, so I think we were in the same genre because I was interested. I had long hair, probably till about mid high school, and then I just sort of just cut it. And now I don't, I'm losing it, so it's gone, right? But I mean,
but sometimes it seems like it would be easier.
There's a sense of envy, like it's like you have this long hair. But how do you keep it in 2019? There must be people every day. And I hope I'm speaking totally as a friend, right? I'm there's people every day say, like, you got long, you got to cut your hair, man. Like, it's too long.
Yeah, I've had that, but I think it's become less and less over time. Like, now that I have a PhD, I'm a scientist. I work at a university. It's there's less
I think it's
leeway.
Very cool. I think it's really unique. And I think it's awesome. I thought there was a story that maybe you played in a band and you had another, like, I thought you were like scientist by day, rock star at night, or something. You're doing something, but no.
I played in a jazz band, but
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah. That's very good. That's very interesting. Well, anyways, it was on my mind from the first time I saw you. So I said, this guy's the Indian Fabio, right? And I'm sure people have said that to you, like because you got it's mostly the locks, right?
My older sister has called me. She lived in Italy for 8 or 9 years, and she came back. She's like, "You're like a Fabio," or something. I've had literally the phrase Indian Fabio
on a windy day. On a windy day, you'd be that guy. Awesome. Anyways, sorry, no, it's all good. It's all good. So music's your big thing, your big hobby outside of work, yeah?
Yeah, kind of always has been, probably always will be.
Right.
I think I'm more of a listener than a player now because I live in an apartment.
Yeah,
my instruments are brass instruments and percussion instruments.
Oh yeah, so they're louder. You can't do much.
Can't really play that in an apartment.
That's fascinating. And right now, like, should you do solo work? Like, could you play an instrument solo and do like a 5-minute piece and make, like, for example, I play drums. But it's kind of hard banging drums around without basically sounding like you're doing a drum solo all the time, right?
Yeah. So I used to do a lot of solo work. Nowadays, like, I don't really play that much anymore, so I wouldn't be that comfortable doing
I get it. I'm just curious. Yeah, it's very cool.
I used to, like, I was a trumpet soloist for a long time.
That's cool.
And then,
very cool. Sorry, I just have to ask.
No, it's cool. It's cool. I didn't realize you were actually into the similar kinds of music.
Oh, always was. I was. I was into. I mean, back then the originals, Zeppelin, Van Halen, Metallica, Black Album. I think it was 1990. Like, around then, it was like game changer for the kind of stuff. And then eventually, just I basically love any type of music, quite frankly.
Okay.
I've gotten more into popular stuff now, just because everyone around me listens to it. But I'm very, very. You grew up in Hamilton. You're gonna like Metallica, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
that's cool.
Tool came by a couple of years ago.
Oh, of course, all the great bands, right? And even the hair bands like Motley Crue. I mean, and classic. AC/DC wasn't a hair band, but AC/DC, all those bands.
Yeah, no, it's funny that we have that in common.
I just wish I had the hair. Yeah. But anyways, good to see you, man. It was awesome. It was a pleasure. Thanks for watching OrthoPod. Stay tuned for more episodes.